Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Make Money Your Honey podcast. I'm your host, Amanda Abea, founder and CEO of Make Money Your Honey, where we help women triple their revenue while working half the time by teaching them system, influence, and sales. And I have another legend on the podcast today. I love doing these interviews. Can I just talk about how much I'm really loving doing these interviews on the podcast? I am learning so much from our guests, and we're getting such good feedback that you guys are learning a lot from them too. And today's guest will be no different because I have Arielle Ford on the podcast today. Now, if you're into self-help books, if you're into spirituality, and if you're into New Age, then you probably know who Arielle Ford is because she's kind of a big deal. And this is very exciting. So, Arielle Ford is a leading personality in the personal growth and contemporary spirituality movement. For the past 30 years, she's been living, teaching, and promoting consciousness through all forms of media. She's a celebrated love and relationship expert, author, speaker, and is the co-creator and host of Evolving Wisdom's Art of Love series. Her mission is to help women find love, keep love, and be love. As the president of the Ford Group, Arielle was widely recognized as America's foremost book publicist and was instrumental in launching the careers of many New York Times best-selling self-help authors, including Deepak Chopra, Jack Canfield, Mark Victor Hansen, Neil Donald Walsh, Don Miguel Ruiz, and Debbie Ford. Arielle was the publicist for dozens of other top-selling authors such as Wayne Dyer, Marianne Williamson, Louise Hay, Gary Zukav, Dean Ornish, Joan Borisenko, George Cruz, and Don Miguel Ruiz. She is retired from the PR and marketing. Arielle is a gifted writer and the author of 11 books, including the international bestseller, The Soulmate Secret, Manifest the Love of Your Life with the Law of Attraction, which is published in 21 languages and in 40 countries. She's also written many groundbreaking books, including Turn Your Mate into Your Soulmate, A Practical Guide to Happily Ever After, and Wabi Sabi Love, The Ancient Art of Finding Perfect Love in Imperfect Relationships, and Turn Your Mate into Your Soulmate. Her latest book is Inspirations, Love by Design, Coloring the Divine Path to Manifest Your Soulmate, the world's first transformational coloring book. I love a good coloring book. That's actually how I relax at night. I color. A longtime student of love, Arielle regularly presents workshops around the world, including England, Germany, Italy, Mexico, Kuwait, Canada, Romania, Ireland, and Bali, as well as personal growth centers such as Omega Institute, Kripalu, the Chopra Center, SLN Alternatives in London, Awesomeness Fest, Celebrate Your Life, and many other prestigious venues. Arielle has been called the Cupid of consciousness and the fairy godmother of love. She lives in La Jolla with her husband's soulmate, Brian Hillard, and their feline friends. Oh, so as you can see, Arielle's a big deal. And she's had an amazing career and has launched so many careers of authors that we've all heard of. And we got into a really interesting podcast episode. So here's what we got into. We got into Arielle's story of how she manifested a $6 million opportunity. That's a really good story. We talked about how manifesting works, whether you're trying to manifest love or you're trying to manifest money. She gives dating tips for like the high-powered single women who are making a lot of money. I also, of course, because I'm so transparent on the podcast, share a lot about my own dating experiences and how they changed after I started making more money and had better boundaries, and how my experience of dating completely changed after that. We also talked about just like the reality of life. Arielle talked about how one of the things she's really trying to do is just help people normalize certain things. Like, you know, you have highs and you have lows. You make a lot of money and then you have a dip, you know, or sometimes your soulmate wants to drive you crazy. And that's all normal. That's all a part of life, and part of her mission right now is to help people normalize that. We talked about some of the ways that women, particularly women who make a lot of money, hold themselves back in relationships, some of the mistakes that we make when we're dating. We also talked about this idea of masculine versus feminine energy in dating and, in work. And I know that's a topic that a lot of you are very interested in, so I made sure to ask. And then we got into this really great conversation about how this conversation that us women keep having about whether or not we're worthy of making money kind of needs to stop. It's a really entertaining episode. Arielle is a freaking hoot, which I would expect nothing less because she grew up in South Florida just like me. We're a hoot in Florida, and it's so much fun. She's got such a great personality, and she just tells it like it is, right? So she's our kind of people where she just tells it like it is. So let's dive right into the interview. Welcome to another episode of the Make Money Your Honey podcast. I am here with the Arielle Ford. Is it Arielle or Arielle?
It's actually Arielle, like the letters R-E-L.
Arielle. Okay, I am here with Arielle Ford because I've heard people say both, so I'm glad I asked. Arielle Ford, thank you so much for being here and sharing your wisdom and knowledge about manifesting money and love.
I like the way you said that, love.
Well, we all need a little love. We all need more money and we all need more love, right?
Right.
All right. So for the three people in my audience who may not know who you are, who is Arielle Ford and how did she get here?
Well, how I got here is a really long story, but basically at this point in my life, I help people find love, keep love, and be love. That's my sole mission these days. But I have a long history of doing lots of other things. I worked in publishing for many, many years. I was a book publicist and a literary agent, and I had lots of clients you've heard of: Deepak Chopra, Marianne Williamson, Wayne Dyer, Louise Hay, Don Miguel Ruiz, Neil Donald Walsh, Gary Zukav, just pretty much the who's who of the New Age self-help movement. And I loved it, and I did it for a long time. And in 2004, I woke up one day and just said, can't do this anymore. And I shut the business down and had no game plan until our mutual friend, Gay Hendricks, happened to call me. And I had only met Gay once. I met him at my wedding, which is a whole other story. And Gay said to me, I want you to drive up to Ojai. I live in San Diego, so it's like a 5-hour drive. I want you to drive to Ojai and come meet with me. I have a business idea. And I had shut down my business. I had no plan B. I thought, what the hell? I'll go meet this guy. And I went to his house and he told me about his concept for a startup business called the Spiritual Cinema Circle, which was a DVD club specializing in uplifting movies. And he said to me, I want you to be my partner, but there's no upfront money. You'll just do sweat equity. And if we make money, you'll have a share of it. And normally I would have said, are you out of your effing mind? There's no way I'm working for free. But because I had all this free time, I thought, it's a cool idea. What the hell? So I joined forces with Gay and 2 other partners. And 3 years later, we sold the business for $6 million.
Wow.
Yeah. Talk about manifesting, because I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I would just sit down every day and do these, what I call feelingizations, and imagine what it would feel like to have a career, an income stream that made good use of all my talents and all of my connections in the industry and was fun. But I didn't know what it looked like until I met with Gay. And then it was like, oh God, this is perfect for me. I can use everything that I've ever done, but in a new way. So that's what I love about the law of attraction. You don't have to know what it is your desire is. You only have to know how you most want to feel when you land your desire.
Okay, I love that because sometimes, and I've worked with a lot of manifesting coaches and mentors or things, and sometimes that desire thing trips me up, right? It's recently been tripping me up because I now have more time because I've got systems and team and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, I don't know what I want. I haven't even had time to think about what I want. So I'm happy to hear you say, like, how do you want to feel? Because that's kind of what I've been leaning into. And then I would always get confused because people would be like, what's the desire? What's the desire? And I'm like, I don't know.
Here's what the desire is. The desire is every morning when I wake up, I want to leap out of bed, so excited about the day ahead of me, where I'm doing stuff that's creative and productive and financially viable and feeling happy, satisfied, and content.
I love that. Love
And it
that.
doesn't matter what it looks like. Who knows? Because there's no way I could have ever known that I was going to go from running a book publicity firm and a literary agency to partnering with somebody I hardly knew, creating a new business that didn't even exist at the time. I couldn't have known that. And even if somebody had a crystal ball and said, oh, this is your next business, I would have said, what are you, crazy? How could that be successful? Like I would have never done it. So we're not always supposed to know everything. What Deepak Chopra always says is that the seeds for our desire is proof that it can be manifested. So my desire at that time was to go into a new financially viable, creative business with people that I enjoyed being with. And I didn't need to know the how it was going to happen. And
I
even once
love
I
that.
got into it, I didn't know the day I said yes, how it was all going to unfold. I had no idea. This was in the early days of affiliate marketing. It was brand new. Nobody knew what it was. Nobody was doing it. And Gay had come up with this 3-tiered affiliate thing. So, he would say to me, listen, if you go and you bring in Hay House as a client, we knew they had a big email list. And then Hay House gets 10 of their authors like Greg Braden and other people to sign up. You're going to get a percentage of Hay House. You're going to get a second tier of Greg Braden. And if Greg Braden signs up somebody, you'll get a third tier. So suddenly I had all these multiple streams of income I didn't even know existed. And because of all the famous people in self-help I had worked with prior to all this, I was able to call every single one of them and said, hey, Gay and I are starting this new cool monthly DVD club, and we're going to have all the fun movies like The Secret in it. And if you tell your people about it, every time someone joins as a member, you're going to make X amount of dollars. And I remember one day we sent one of these famous people a check for $20,000 just for 1 month of referrals. Just 1 month of referrals, he made $20,000. Now you can't do that in affiliate marketing anymore because, it's been burned out pretty much. But this was 2005.
So there's something that you said that I want to bring light to, which is the fact that you did not know how all this stuff was going to turn out. You went into business with someone you barely knew. We work with a lot of women business owners, and I find there's a lot of overthinking going on and over analyzing, and am I doing the right thing? Let me go ask 15 people if I'm doing the right thing. But there's like this general sense of not trusting, and it sounds like you trusted yourself and you trusted what was showing up for you. And I find that's an area where a lot of people, I'm the same way. I don't really think, I just go, right? I'm like, oh, this showed up from the universe, I'm just gonna go. So
In that situation, I asked myself, well, what's my downside? What if I go all in for 90 or 120 days and at the end of the day I make no money? I didn't have anything better to do anyway. I liked Gay. I liked the concept. I knew, like, I had the confidence that I could at least give this thing a shot. I had no idea it was going to explode the way it did. I mean, really, we were all getting paychecks by the third month we were in business together, and it got to the point where I was producing so much stuff that Gay bought me a Lexus 450 hybrid as a bonus one day.
wow.
I mean, it was great. It was really great. But, and I've gone through this same phase since then, because after we sold the business 3 years later, we're still at only 2008 and it's now 2021. So I've had 3 other businesses since then. And every time, you don't know in advance if it's going to work. What I do know is what I'm really good at. And I do know that that I have failed before and survived. So do I like failing? No, I don't like failing, but it's not going to be the end of the world. And that's sort of the advantage of getting to a certain age in life where you've lived enough to know that you can survive anything, because there's going to be bad days. Even if you're married to your soulmate, especially if you're married to your soulmate, there are going to be days when you hate them. And that is totally normal. But people live like something's wrong. Oh, we had this big divorce, big thing. Should we get divorced? Is he really my soulmate? Is she really my soulmate? Yeah, if they push all your buttons, they probably really are.
Right. Or like I had a bad sales week and it's only been a week. I'm just going to throw everything. I'm going to throw in the towel. It's over. It's done. I'm never going to, like, people make really all these dramas in their minds sometimes.
And the thing is, the basic laws of the universe are one step forward, two steps back, expansion and contraction. That's normal, like there's like sort of 2 days to get excited. The day when you surpass your numbers is great, except that the crash is coming. And when you're at the bottom of the pit of the crash, celebrate, because you're going to bounce back up. But we're human, and we want what we want when we want it, and we don't do well with disappointment. But it's just normal. Nobody, it, I think my lesson these days, as I get into the last 20% of my life, is just to get people to get what's normal. Okay. It's just normal. It's just the way things are. It doesn't mean that it's bad that something's happening. It just means that it didn't work out. And generally, if something doesn't work out the way you wanted, 3 years from now, you'll say, thank God that didn't work out. Like if I had married the guys that I dated before Brian, I would have been divorced 3 times already. I'm so grateful now that the bad things that happened with him happened, because all of it led me to having, a 24-year great soulmate relationship that I wouldn't have appreciated had I not suffered all through my 30s.
Okay, so you've mentioned laws of the universe, you've mentioned manifesting. Obviously one of your biggest manifesting stories. I didn't know about the $6 million business one. That's a pretty good one. But
well, the business did sell for 6 million. Did I end up with $1 million? I didn't, and here's why. Because I made assumptions about what was going to happen once the buyer took us over. They had an email list of 1 million customers. So knowing all the affiliate stuff in place that I was still going to get and that we could grow further, I made all these assumptions. What I didn't know is that there are things that publicly traded companies can and do that can take all the assets out of a purchase and make your stock worthless the next day. So
wow.
I sold some of my stock and I made good money on the stock I sold. Had I sold all of my stock, I would have easily walked away with $1 million, but I didn't. Now, here's what I discovered 3 years later. Here's the gift of all of that. Let's say I had sold all of my stock. This was now 2000 and mid 2007, and I had $1 million in the bank. A, I would have been out of a job, and B, I would have bought a house. I live in La Jolla, California. It's pretty pricey here. Okay, the tear down next door just sold for 2.4 million, and it's a tiny little cottage. So really, but I would have bought. And then we know what happened towards the end of 2007 when the real estate market crashed. So then I would have been underwater with no job.
Yeah.
But instead, what I did was I made a deal with the buyer where I was getting a ridiculously big salary to transition the company. And Gay had just given me this new car. And I did have some cash put away from the stock I did sell. And for 3 years, I consistently had this new opportunity to see what happens when you work for a corporation that's publicly traded, because it was very different from being an entrepreneur. So it all worked out. I can see now that, thank God, it worked out the way that it did. So I could have said, oh, well, those two, they made more than 7 figures on the sale. I didn't, boo-hoo. But, in retrospect, I did great.
Yeah, it kind of saved you in retrospect from a lot of financial turmoil.
Totally. But, we don't have 2020 vision till way later. So, there's that old Zen story about a farmer and his son, and it's like in the 1800s, and the army comes around and they want to draft the farmer's son to go to war. But the day before, the son had fallen off a horse and he had a broken leg, and when the son was complaining, oh, it's so terrible, I have a broken leg, the father just said to him, well, maybe, and then the next day the army came and they couldn't take him because he had the broken leg. So,
Yeah.
we have to start to see what's the gift even in the darkness.
I love that. So, a really hot topic, and you're an expert at this, is manifestation, right?
Yeah.
I have had a weird relationship with manifestation in the sense that I sometimes feel like the action part of manifestation or law of attraction is sometimes missing. Because, I've been in lots of things where it's like, just believe. And I'm like, okay, but when I believed and I actually did the things, that's when I got results.
Okay. So here's the paradox of the law of attraction. In order for the law of attraction to work, you have to go into action. The word action is in attraction. You need to take the appropriate steps to align with the universe to make your dream happen. Just like, if you're home alone behind closed doors, hoping, wishing, dreaming, pining for a soulmate, you can't meet one if you're not on the dating apps or you're not out at the nightclubs. It's just
Right.
not possible. So you have to do two things at once. And this is what's hard for people to grasp. On the one hand, you're in action. On the other hand, you have to be 100% surrendered and detached from the outcome. And they are not the same thing. So it's not contradictory to be in action. Oh, I want to build this business. I need to have a business plan. I need to advertise. I need to market. I need to hire staff. And at the same time, be totally comfortable with you're doing everything within your power to make it happen. You're knowing and trusting that on the unseen plane, what you've asked for is already yours. And you're not attached to the by when it's got to happen, so that you can live in this place of peace, happiness, faith, and trust. Now, of course, we're human. So there are going to be moments where, oh my God, he's late, she's late. The numbers aren't doing what I wanted it to do, but then you adapt. Maybe there's a new, better way to do it. But so the law of attraction doesn't work. That ask, see, believe bullshit is not for real. You can ask all you want, but if you're not in action, nothing's going to happen.
Thank you. Thank you. And that's what everybody says. That's what like the action is in law of attraction. It just gets lost in the messaging for some reason.
Well, it's, I coach these days, I coach a lot of women looking for love. And all of these women have a few things in common. They're all over 45. They're all very successful in their career. They all consider themselves spiritual, and they've gone to lots of workshops and stuff. And they're all suffering because they're not willing. Well, some of them are, but they have a hard time understanding that, just like, let's say you were a single mother of 3 and you lost your job and you had to feed your kids. Now you could sit at home on the couch going, oh, if it's meant to be, a job will find me. But of course you would never do that. You would get online and update your resume, and you go onto LinkedIn and you'd go on interviews, and you wouldn't quit until you had a job to feed your kids, right? But when it comes to love life, they're all living in this romantic comedy scene. Well, oh, if it's meant to be, he will find me. I'll be walking across the street and a taxi will be barreling towards me, and some handsome guy will pull me out of harm's way at the last second, and I'll fall into his arms and we'll live happily ever after. They all want to meet somebody organically. And that doesn't happen anymore. It just doesn't. Maybe to 1% of the women. The women who are finding love are on the apps 30 minutes every day. They're dealing with the idiots and the jerks and the ghosters, and they're not taking it personally. And they're willing to do video chats, and they're willing to do coffee dates. And eventually they find love. How do I know? I got files full of pictures and testimonials. This stuff totally works. And for anybody who's listening to us that's single, I actually tell you how to do it for free. If you go to my website, soulmatesecret.com, I give away a free online dating guide. And everything you need to know how to date successfully online is in there. And all of you said, oh, I tried it. It didn't work for me, because you didn't know what you were doing and you weren't doing it right. So, it
So
doesn't get better than free.
yeah, no, and it's so interesting that you bring this up because I've done the dating apps and things like that, and I consciously chose not to date while I was in a specific period in my business. In fact, dating helped me realize all the changes I needed to make in my business so I could have time to date. So I had to take a step back for a second, right? But it's interesting that you bring that up because, I've been in conversations with girlfriends and things like that. And one of the things you and I were talking about before we started recording was my dating life got better, right? When I got my money together. Because I would hear all these people complaining about, I mean, yeah, sure, I had to deal with idiots too, but A, I had really strong boundaries, so it didn't last long, or they just weren't into me because I wasn't going to put up with the bullshit,
Right.
right? So but I hear women complaining all the time, like, oh, they're all idiots, they're all jerks, and I'm like, I did not have that experience. I dated some great guys that I met on the apps, and I realized I was not having the same experience on the apps that everybody else was having. Do you have anything to say about that? Because that was
Well,
something I noticed.
so one of the things I really advocate is going onto Amazon and spending $12 to buy a pair of these. These are rose colored glasses. Okay. Everybody should have a pair of rose colored glasses because they've done scientific studies on this. When you're wearing your rose colored glasses, you're looking for what's right instead of looking for what's wrong. And when we're looking for what's wrong, we're always going to find it. And so women go onto these dating apps. Already they have a chip on their shoulder and a bad attitude just getting online. And then they're eliminating people they don't know by making assumptions. Oh, he's not good looking enough. Oh, he probably doesn't make any money. Oh, this or that. And they don't know. They just don't know. Oh, there's a typo in his profile.
Oh, they do
One
that.
of the stupidest
I mean,
ones
we do
ever.
that. Us women, we do that. We're like the
Listen,
grammar, the
I'm,
grammar.
I'm a published author of 11 books and I still make grammatical errors and typos, and I'm a catch. Okay, so to judge somebody on a typo basically says, I'm not that interested. I mean, there's got to be something in the profile that you could write back to say, oh, I see that you love the Hawaiian pizza at Sammy's. We must be pizza soulmates. I like that too. You send that out as a first message, you're going to get a response back. Now, from the response back, you can find out, does he have anything interesting to say, typos or not, right? And if it's interesting enough, just say, hey, why don't we get on a video chat for 10 minutes? And then you can check out, can they speak? What's their body language like? Is there any kind of conversation flow? And if it is, then you can go out and meet them for coffee. But to start, just swiping based on one picture and two sentences and thinking something. Like one of my clients, what I often do with my clients is they share their screen with me and I see who's talking to them on Match. And I have this one woman who's, got an advanced degree from Stanford, makes 7 figures, very successful, attractive, 61, never married, but gorgeous. And she's looking at this one guy. Well, I think he's really attractive, but he's a plumber. And I'm reading through and it's like, oh, did you miss the part where it says he has a PhD from UCLA? And did you miss the part where it says he owns the plumbing company and he
Yeah,
has
plumbers make good
people,
money, guys.
right? I said,
Like,
who cares? He's a businessman with a highly successful business and a strong education. She ended up dating him for 5 months, but she would
yeah.
have missed it. She would have missed it because she was just going by, oh, not he. I mean, his pictures weren't great. He was much better looking in person, but she made a judgment. Oh, he's a plumber, not educated enough, doesn't make enough money. And that's what women do. They're looking for what's wrong, and of course, if they see some guy that totally knocks their socks off, well, every other woman in the world has seen that guy too.
Yep.
So I always say if you can rank the guy at a 6 or higher, it's worth the effort to send a message.
So you mentioned something, and there's something that I realize it happens with money and sales too. So I've worked with relationship coaches, and there's always a lot of confusion around being masculine versus feminine, right? And I've noticed the same thing happens with money a lot of the times. Everyone's afraid of being too masculine, right? So they're like, the guy needs to pick where we're going to go. He needs to pick my coffee. He needs to make more money than me. He needs. So, what are your
Yeah,
thoughts on that? And
well,
the same thing happens with money. They're like, "Oh, I'm just leaning back and receiving the money." And I'm like, "Did you make any phone calls today?"
this conversation's changing rapidly. I was reading an article in the LA Times the other day about the 27 definitions for all the gender stuff, whether it's
Yeah.
gay, straight, binary. I mean, it's lots I hadn't even heard of. It was fascinating because the old rules are melting away. And what's true for 100% of all women who work is when you're working, you're in your masculine side of your head. You're in your testosterone driven way of being. And if you want to manifest an alpha masculine man, then when you're together, you do want to lean back and embrace your feminine qualities, but you don't want to be somebody that you're not. Like I'm just an inherently bossy, overbearing, get it done, tell it like it is, black and white person.
That's always been my issue because I'm the
But it's
same.
not an issue.
Yeah.
I married a man
No,
who loves that about me.
I meant the issue being that my issue with it was I always felt like I had to turn into someone I wasn't. That was the
No,
issue.
you can
Yeah.
totally be yourself, but you have to do it from an intelligent perspective about understanding that men think differently than we do. They respond differently. And somebody said to me one day, well, the way you describe it, it sounds like you're training dogs and dolphins. It's like, yeah, it's the same thing. It's the same thing, so you want to just, give them one item at a time to think about. You don't want to talk to them like they're your girlfriend and you're going off in five different directions at once. Like my thing with Brian in the beginning was, he would say to me, well, where do you want to go to dinner? And that question would piss me off. And it would piss me off because at the end of a long day, the last thing I wanted to do was make yet another decision. So
Yeah.
I always said to him, you know what? I don't really care where we go to dinner. So either make an executive decision and pick something or give me a multiple choice, which was great, and now 90% of the time, even if he catches himself asking me, I'll just say, oh no, you choose. And then he'll come up with three choices for me, or he'll just say, no, I've decided we're going to go to Lupi's for Italian or whatever, so it's about understanding men as well. As for the money thing, this comes up all the time too. It's like, I tell people, you've got to do the video chats first and then go for a walk, and if you're not, meet them somewhere. So there's no money involved at all, or if you do go to Starbucks, you go for an ice cream cone, offer to pay half. What's the big deal? It doesn't mean anything.
Like we drive ourselves nuts over that sometimes with women being like, no, he needs to pay for everything. And I have a lot of male friends, and I
Yeah.
think that's actually kind of helped me in dating because I just go ask them like, hey, what's up with this? Like, right? Because I can have that relationship with them, and my male friends have taught me a lot, right? And I'm even friends with men I have dated, and they have taught me a lot. And sometimes I think we just need to have more friends of the opposite sex in order to understand each other better. That's one of the areas where women drive themselves absolutely bonkers, is whether or not he actually paid for something. And I'm like, have you ever had a conversation with a guy who's afraid that a woman's going to take advantage of him? Because that's like a real thing for them, you know. We just drive ourselves crazy over it.
Now,
Like
that's why the first date should never be lunch or dinner. Never, ever, because you don't know this person, right? So, just make it really easy. Do the video date once or twice. Make sure that they can talk and that there's some connection there. Then go do something that costs almost no money. And if that goes well and you decide you're going to go to dinner, offer to pay half. It's just the polite thing to do. Just offer. And if he says, no, I'm happy to take you to dinner, you could say, oh, that's really sweet and generous. I'll get the next one. Women say, oh, I want an equal partner, but it's not true. they don't really want an equal. They want somebody who's going to, be like their sugar daddy, even if they're out earning them. And it's unfair. And imagine, ask your guy friends, how do they feel? It's
They don't
unfair.
like it at all. They do not like it. I've had this conversation with them. And like I said, it's been very insightful to just have male friends that you can ask them about their dating
Yeah.
experiences. And it's helped me have better dating experience. I tell women all the time, like, y'all need some male friends. And in fact, when I was in these dating programs and things, that's one of the things I would notice is like, do any of you ever talk to men outside of a romantic capacity? Right? Because it's very insightful what you will learn from them so you can better understand them. And vice versa. I think men should also, learn from women and things. Like that. But yeah, no, we drive ourselves nuts over it. And I was always very much there's so many different ways of doing it. I mean, I was a financial writer for 8 years. There's so many different ways that couples can decide to manage the money and talk about the finances. In my experience being a financial writer, the only rule is transparency. Like actually talk about it, right? Because this idea, I recently interviewed Barbara Hewson, formerly known as Barbara Stanny. She's helped so many women
Yeah.
with personal finance. And she's like, I was taught to not even look at it. And then, that did not work out for her. And when I did more financial coaching, it was the same thing. I had to coach a lot of women on the other side of divorce who had no idea what was going on with the money. And then they come to find out that they're 250 grand in the hole, but they had no idea. So like the only real rule is like transparency. Would you
Right.
agree with that?
Oh, 100%. And, money is still the number one cause of divorce, so the sooner you can be open and transparent about it, the better. So I grew up in a lower middle class family, always hearing my parents fight about money, believing that we were dirt poor, even though we had a house to live in, just because of how they interacted. Brian grew up in a very upper middle class country club lifestyle kind of home. Money was never an issue. He grew up with money, grew up with the country club, got out of college, made a lot of money. And I had to tell him early on, I said, listen, my core issue is poverty consciousness. I've been going to workshops and I've been going to therapy, and I have issues. Not that I don't have money, because I make plenty of money, but I was watching how he would spend money, and it would drive me crazy. I took him to his first sale. He had never bought anything on sale in his life, and I had never paid full retail for anything in my life. So it's been a process along the way, because even though we were both in our 40s when we got together, I would watch how he would spend our money, because we had 3 accounts. I had my money, he had his money, and then we had our money, because I'm a control freak, especially around money. So we came up with agreements about how much money either of us could spend in the our account. But then I would just watch him like pull out the credit card. People would invite us to dinner, and then he would pay for everything. And I'd say to him, they invited us. Why are you paying for everything? It was a $500 dinner. He says, look, it makes me feel really good. And it's not that we can't afford it. And in my mind, it's just not fair. So money issues are ongoing, but you have to be able to talk about it. It got really bad the day he nicknamed me his frugal wife. Really, I'm
Not
your
the frugal wife.
I'm the frugal wife. But yeah, it's just one of those things. You have to talk about it. You need to know each other's credit rating. You have to be on the same page about loaning money to people. Stuff. I mean, it's just good common sense, because you're not going to agree on everything, but you have to come to agreements about the shared finances and the transparency. And that's what adults do. Real mature adults can sit down and have these conversations.
So, I recently saw you on an interview, and you said something really brilliant that I have also noticed, and I don't think a lot of people are talking about it. But you were asked about this conversation women have around their own worthiness and money, and you were basically like, "That's bullshit. We need to stop having this conversation." And I was like, "Yes, we need to stop having this conversation. Why is no one saying this?" So, can you speak to that a little bit?
Well, I have Swiss cheese memory, so I have no idea what I said. I don't remember.
Hold on, I wrote it down.
I
Hold on, I
oh,
was
good.
doing research. Okay, you were asked about the worthiness conversation, and then you said we need to get basically over it, and that women are using it as an excuse to not go
Oh,
for what they want.
right, right. Well, that's that part of what I was talking about there was also the whole industry around self-love courses. Oh, I have to love myself first before I can find love, which is just crap. It's just bullshit. Everybody has some self-worth and self-love issues. Everybody. It's just how it is. You shouldn't let it stop you from going anywhere. Who you are today is enough, right? And as long as you're comparing yourself to other people, you're just, it's just a form of self-torture. Oh, I'm just not good enough for this, or I'm not good enough for that. And that's just a way to be miserable. It's a game that you play with yourself. If you, like I said earlier, if you have a desire for something, it means that the seeds for the fulfillment of the desire are within you, or you wouldn't be desiring it. So you have to, like, coach yourself. Stop this silly self-talk. And as a writer, I've asked every writer I know, and we all writers suffer from the same thing. You've probably had it too. Who am I to write this book?
Of course, yes.
Right? That's the ongoing thing, like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I know I've written a lot of books, but really, I just completed my first novel, and through the whole thing, it's like, what are you, crazy? Who are you to write a novel? You don't know anything about writing fiction, which I found out along the way. I knew nothing about writing fiction. But it doesn't mean I can't learn. It doesn't mean that I can't be successful at it. And so we have to manage our monkey minds. And I think that's one of the hardest part about being human. It's not the other people that are as much trouble as that inner critic voice that's constantly barfing all over us. You couldn't, you shouldn't, you didn't, you loser, this, that, and the other thing. Got to manage.
Yeah, I mean, yesterday we were doing a free training for our audience on pricing, and we had my team had originally wrote like charge your worth, and I'm like, no, we need to start changing this conversation because that's been said a lot. Charge your worth, negotiate your worth, all that kind of stuff, and I've come to realize, no, actually, we're inherently worthy. So let's start there, right? And to your point, yeah, those are our two biggest core wounds: is self-worth and self-love,
I'll
right? The
tell you
fear
a
that
quick story that really illustrates this. Somebody was interviewing Oprah one day, and they were somehow talking about, this topic. And Oprah said, I've interviewed everybody. I've interviewed Barack Obama and Beyonce and Paul McCartney and you name it. I've interviewed everybody. And she said, do you know what they say to me at the end of every interview? Every single person asked me the same thing. Do you know what it is? And the person said, no. And she goes, at the end of the interview, they all say, was that okay? Was that okay? Everybody has this issue. It doesn't matter if you're Sir Paul McCartney and you've written millions of hits. We still want to be loved and acknowledged and accepted for exactly who we are, in spite of what we've done in the past. We can't get enough of it. So getting back to, what do men need? They want to be acknowledged.
they do.
The
They
thing, the
really
thing
do.
that will make almost any man really happy is to say a couple different things to him. First of all, tell him he's brilliant, or that's a brilliant idea. Oh, I would have never thought of that. You're so brilliant. They absolutely love that word. They all need, there was a study done with 80,000 men, and they were looking to see what's the one thing men want more than sex. Respect.
Mm-hmm.
Respect more than sex. They want to be respected. They want to give their opinion. They want you to ask for advice. What they don't want to do is cry on your shoulder and share their feelings deeply, unless it's an appropriate kind of situation. So if your husband, boyfriend, whatever, comes home from work and you can tell they're terribly stressed out, you don't want to say, oh, honey, how are you feeling? Do you want to talk about it? It's like the worst thing you could possibly do. The best thing you could possibly do is hand them a beer or martini or their favorite glass of wine and the remote control, lead them over to their favorite chair and say, go watch Sports Center for an hour. And then if you want to talk, I'll be in the kitchen.
Yep, it's true. I've done that, not even with romantic partners, just, men in my life, and it makes a huge difference. They just want to be acknowledged. And when they're having a bad time, they just need to veg out for a little while. And then when they're ready to talk, they'll talk.
Yes. And that's the key word, when they're ready, not when you're ready.
Yeah. And the other thing I've learned is not to treat men like my own personal diary.
Yeah. They can only take in so much at a time.
There's only so much. Well, thank you so much for being here and sharing your wisdom with us. Tell the people what you've got going on and where they can find you.
Oh, okay. Well, my website is soulmatesecret.com. I'm also on Facebook, facebook.com/soulmate. And I'm on Instagram at Arielle Ford 44. And my email address is my name at Gmail. Very, very, very easy to find.
She is very easy to find. And tell them about your books in case they don't know.
Oh, okay. So I have one book called The Soulmate Secret, Manifest the Love of Your Life with the Law of Attraction. It's in 44 countries and 21 languages. And it is everything I did to manifest the love of my life when I was 44 years old, which was a long time ago. And I have another book called Turn Your Mate into Your Soulmate, which is for women already in relationship that have one foot out the door. And before you go out the door, you should read this book because it can recharge, reignite, and restimulate your relationship. And those are the two main books right now.
All right, you guys heard it. Make sure to grab the books. I read Soulmate Secret. I think I read it before I even understood what was in it. So I probably have to go back and reread it. I think it was too much for me at the time, but now I'm at a stage in my life where I'm ready. So
just go to my website and get the free 9-page online dating guide. I'm telling you, you already know plenty. You just got to know the proper way to navigate the sites. And the thing I'll tell you is that Match.com is where all the smart, successful women I know have found great conscious husbands.
I've heard that. I mean, one of my closest friends, she met her current husband. Actually, my niece I call her my niece. We were roommates. But they just had their first child and they met on Match. And he's a great guy. Great guy. I've heard wonderful things about Match.
Yep. All right, well, go for it. It was great to meet you, Amanda.
It was great to meet you too. Thank you so much for being here. And remember, everybody, cheers to making money your honey. And don't forget to be the queen of your sales and your relationships this week.
All right, take care.